Not every guardian comes with a badge. Some walk on 4 legs. Some bear scars you can't see. This is the story of how a stray dog saved me, and how together, we changed the streets of Lagos forever. The scorching Lagos sun beat down on the crumbling streets of Mushin as Amaka balanced a basket of fruits on her head, weaving between honking Kiki riders and angry Danfo conductors. Life had never been kind to her, not after Papa disappeared without a trace 5 years ago, leaving her and Mama to fend for themselves. Now, at just 19, Amaka carried the weight of the world in cracked slippers and weary eyes. She didn't notice the skinny dog trailing her at first, its ribs poking sharply through a dust-coated coat, its limp barely visible under the chaos of the market. As she crossed the busy junction at Alosha, a speeding black SUV broke traffic rules, hurtling toward her. The crowd gasped. Before Amaka could react, the dog lunged, slamming into her legs and knocking her out of the path of death by inches. Tires screeched. Horns blared. Amaka hit the ground hard, fruit scattering everywhere. Dazed, she looked up. The SUV was already gone, and standing beside her, panting and bloodied, was the stray dog. The dog that had just saved her life. The market women rushed to help, surrounding her with clucking tongues and shouting curses at the reckless driver. But Amaka couldn't take her eyes off the dog. Something about him, the way he stared at her, head tilted as if recognizing her soul, made the hairs on her arms rise. "You day lucky girl," an old woman cried. "Na spirit save you oh." Amaka struggled to her feet, bruised but breathing, and whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure if it was to the heavens or to the dog. Before she could blink, the stray turned and limped into the crowd. Instinctively, without understanding why, Amaka abandoned her scattered fruit and chased after him. She didn't know it yet, but following that dog would drag her into a hidden world of secrets, betrayals, and a destiny she was never meant to find. As she disappeared into the crowd after the strange animal, the sun sank low over Lagos, and the first shadow of danger crept silently behind her. Amaka sprinted through the twisted alleys of Mushin, ignoring the shouted curses of vendors, as she stumbled through puddles and over fallen crates. The stray, battered, bleeding, but determined, weaved skillfully through the chaos. She caught fleeting glimpses of him, a flash of a dirty tail, the shimmer of amber eyes, always just out of reach. Her heart thundered against her ribs, not just from the chase but from the nagging voice inside her head asking, "What are you doing?" The late afternoon air grew thick, heavy with the promise of rain, as the crowded market thinned into an eerie stretch of abandoned warehouses and crumbling buildings. The dog finally slowed near the banks of a sluggish, foul-smelling canal where an old, sagging house leaned dangerously over the water. Without hesitation, it slipped through a broken fence and disappeared into the shadows. Amaka hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to turn back. But something deep, ancient, and undeniable, pushed her forward. Clutching her threadbare dress around her knees, she slipped through the same fence. The house loomed before her like a half-forgotten nightmare, and somewhere deep inside, she knew, crossing that threshold would change her life forever. Inside, the house smelled of mildew, rust, and something else, something metallic and sharp. The floorboards creaked under Amaka's bare feet as she called out softly, "Hello!" No answer, only the distant drip-drip of water leaking from the cracked ceiling. She found the dog curled up near an old fireplace, whimpering softly. His paw was badly wounded, bleeding onto the dusty tiles. Heart aching, Amaka knelt beside him, tearing a strip from her wrapper to gently bandage the wound. As she did, her eyes fell on a torn photograph half buried under a pile of rubble. A photograph of a young girl who looked hauntingly like Amaka herself, standing beside a man she had never seen before. Before she could study it further, a sudden heavy thud echoed from upstairs. Footsteps. Not the scamper of rats. Real human footsteps. Amaka froze, heart hammering against her ribs. She wasn't alone in the house, and whoever was upstairs, they had just realized she was here. Amaka crouched low, pressing herself against the wall as the footsteps creaked closer. every fiber of her being screamed to run, but she stayed still, clutching the injured dog protectively. Her mind raced. What if it's a squatter? A madman? Or worse? The shadows at the bottom of the staircase deepened as a figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, with a ragged scar running from the corner of his mouth to his left ear. His eyes were sharp and cruel, scanning the room with slow, deliberate menace. In his hand, he gripped a rusted crowbar, twirling it lazily as if savoring the moment. Amaka's breath caught painfully in her throat. The man's eyes passed over the empty fireplace, the collapsed ceiling beams, then narrowed suspiciously at the dog's fresh trail of blood. A cruel smile tugged at his lips. "Come out, little mouse," he crooned, his voice low and mocking. "No need to hide. I already smell your fear." The dog whimpered softly, pressing closer to Amaka's side. She knew then, if she didn't act now, she and the dog wouldn't make it out alive. A broken bottle lay near her hand. Heart hammering, Amaka snatched it up, the jagged glass biting into her palm. As the man took another step forward, she hurled the bottle with all her strength. It shattered against the wall beside him, sending shards flying into his face. He roared in pain, clutching his bleeding cheek. Without waiting, Amaka scooped up the dog and sprinted for the back door. She crashed through it into the humid evening air, racing blindly toward the lights of the distant street. Behind her, the man's furious screams echoed across the canal. Gasping, stumbling, Amaka didn't dare look back. She didn't stop running until she reached a crowded motor park teeming with shouting drivers and restless passengers. Only then did she dare to glance over her shoulder. The scarred man hadn't followed. For now, hugging the dog tighter, she realized with a sinking heart, she hadn't escaped the danger. She had only delayed it. Somewhere in Lagos, that man, and whoever he worked for, now knew her face. The teeming crowds of Ojulegba Motor Park gave Amaka a temporary sense of safety. She found a corner by a pepper soup vendor and sat down, cradling the injured dog. The street buzzed around her. Danfo drivers shouting prices, hawkers balancing trays of gala and pure water on their heads, children weaving through traffic selling recharge cards. But Amaka felt a world apart, cold despite the heat, her mind racing. Why would a stranger chase her? What did he want? She glanced down at the dog, who stared back with tired but intelligent eyes. It didn't make sense, unless it wasn't her he wanted. Maybe it was the dog. Her thoughts were interrupted by a hoarse whisper. An old pepper seller, her face lined with age and wisdom, had been watching her. "That dog you carry," she said in Yoruba, voice low and serious, "is not ordinary. He has seen things you cannot imagine." Amaka blinked, confused. Before she could ask more, the old woman pressed something into her hand. A crumpled piece of newspaper. "Find him before they find you," she said cryptically, then turned away into the crowd, disappearing like smoke. Hands trembling, Amaka unfolded the paper. It was a faded news clipping from 5 years ago. The headline read, "Missing heir to Okoro conglomerates still unfound." Below it, a blurred photo of a small boy standing beside a golden retriever. A retriever with the same unique scar above the left eye as the dog curled against her now. Her heart nearly stopped. Impossible. Was this dog the same one? And if so, what did that mean? The name on the article made her blood run cold. Chief Okoro. Everyone in Lagos knew that name, the ruthless tycoon rumored to have buried more than a few secrets under his empire. Amaka's head spun. What had she stumbled into? She tucked the paper under her dress and clutched the dog tighter. Somewhere out there, a man like Chief Okoro might still be looking for this dog. And if the scarred man worked for him, Amaka's life was already hanging by a thread. Somewhere in the shadows of Lagos, a dangerous game had just begun, and she was the unwitting pawn in it. Amaka couldn't sleep that night. She stayed in a cheap face-me-I-face-you lodge near the park, the kind where rats owned the halls and mosquitoes ruled the air. The injured dog, now christened Max in her mind, curled against her side, whimpering softly in his dreams. The newspaper clipping burned a hole in her memory. Chief Okoro was a name you whispered in Lagos, not said aloud. His empire stretched from oil to real estate to politics. and anyone who crossed him usually vanished like yesterday's rain. What connection could a girl like her possibly have to a man like him? She wondered bitterly. Yet somehow, through Max, her quiet, battered life had been dragged into a storm. Near dawn, a knock rattled her flimsy door. Amaka's heart leapt into her throat. She crept close and pressed her ear against the peeling wood. A man's voice drifted through, low, calm, terrifyingly polite. "You have something that doesn't belong to you. Open the door, or regret it." The doorknob jiggled. Max stiffened beside her, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Amaka clutched him closer. She knew then, the men in the shadows weren't going to ask twice. Without thinking, she yanked open the tiny back window and shoved Max through first, clambering after him onto a rusted metal awning. The men kicked the door open just as she leapt off the side, landing hard in a pile of rotting garbage. Max darted ahead, weaving between Danfos and roadside Acra sellers. Amaka stumbled after him, ignoring the shouts behind her. Blood roared in her ears. Somehow, she and Max slipped into the crush of morning commuters, vanishing like ghosts. Panting against a cracked wall 2 streets away, Amaka realized something terrifying. Running wasn't enough. Sooner or later, they would catch her. If she wanted to survive, she had to stop hiding. She had to find out what Max knew, and why the men chasing her would kill to get him back. Squaring her shoulders, she whispered into the noisy Lagos morning, "If you're leading me into hell, Max, just don't leave me there alone." By mid-morning, Amaka found herself sitting behind a crumbling mechanic's shed in Yaba, trying to catch her breath. Max lay beside her, licking his wounded paw, while the chaos of Lagos raged around them. She needed help, but not from the police. Too many rumors floated about Chief Okoro's invisible reach. Her thoughts snapped to one person, Mama Nkechi. Her grandmother used to mention Baba Iridi, an old herbalist known for seeing what the eyes cannot. Amaka hesitated. Spiritual things had always scared her, but desperate times called for desperate risks. Clutching Max tightly, she decided. If anyone could explain the connection between the dog, the scarred men, and her unraveling life, it would be Baba Iridi. The journey to Baba Iridi's shrine near Ojodu Burger felt endless, a blur of crowded malus and sweltering heat. The shrine itself was a weathered bungalow, hidden behind thick banana trees. When Amaka finally stumbled in, an old man with sightless white eyes was waiting for her. Without prompting, Baba Iridi rasped, "You carry a spirit of protection, but it comes at a price, child." Amaka swallowed hard. Before she could ask anything, Baba Iridi's gnarled hand pointed to Max. "They are not hunting you," he said, voice dropping to a whisper. "They are hunting what he protects inside you." Amaka's heart stuttered. Inside me? She thought wildly. What could possibly be inside her that powerful men would kill to retrieve? Amaka stared at Baba Iridi in disbelief, clutching Max closer as if the old man's words could physically harm her. "What do you mean, inside me?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Baba Iridi chuckled dryly, as if amused by her innocence. He shuffled closer, his bare feet scraping the dusty ground. "Your blood, girl," he said. "It carries something they want, something hidden long ago." Max growled low, sensing the growing fear curling around her. Baba Iridi pulled out an old, cracked mirror and held it toward her. "Look deep," he said. "See what others have tried to steal." Amaka hesitated, her reflection wavering under the fading light. She didn't see anything unusual, just a frightened girl with dust-smudged cheeks and wild eyes. But somewhere deep in her bones, she felt it. An invisible weight, a secret imprinted inside her before she could even speak. Baba Iridi leaned back. "You were never meant to live an ordinary life, child. You are the missing key to a fortune soaked in blood." Amaka recoiled. She had heard of powerful Lagos families hiding heirs to protect their empires. Could she be one of them? Before she could ask more, a sharp whistle sliced through the air outside the shrine, the sound of hunters finding their prey. Baba Iridi's white eyes widened. "Run!" he barked, shoving Amaka toward a hidden door behind the altar. No time for questions. With Max tucked under one arm, Amaka sprinted into the overgrown backyard, heart thundering against her ribs. Behind her, she heard boots stomping into the shrine, angry voices shouting in Yoruba. The thick swampy forest behind the shrine smelled of rot and stagnant water. Thorns tore at her legs, mud sucked at her slippers, but she didn't stop. Max whimpered once but kept running, his instincts sharp and sure. Somewhere in the chaos, Baba Iridi's voice rose above the shouting. A burst of chanting, a crash, and then silence. Amaka bit her lip, forcing down a sob. Baba Iridi had bought her time. But at what cost? She pushed through the dense bush, the city noise fading into a strange, eerie quiet. The ground beneath her grew wetter with every step until she realized she was heading straight into the swamps of Ishari. Her foot slipped, plunging ankle-deep into foul black mud. From the corner of her eye movement, she whirled around and saw one of the scar-faced men crashing toward her through the reeds, machete in hand. Panic blurred her vision. She stumbled backward, pulling Max with her, but there was nowhere to run. She was trapped between the swamp waters and the blade flashing toward her. In that frozen moment, a figure emerged from the shadows, a familiar face. Relief flooded Amaka, until the figure raised a gun, and she realized she had trusted the wrong person. Amaka's mouth went dry as she stared at the person holding the gun. It was Kunnel, her childhood friend, the boy who used to race her down dusty Lagos alleys and share gala on hot afternoons. His familiar grin twisted now into something cold and ruthless. "Amaka, I beg no make 'em hard," he said casually, as if they were talking about the weather. "Hand over the dog. Hand over the paper you found." Behind him, the scarred man advanced, machete glinting wetly in the fading light. Amaka clutched Max tighter, betrayal burning hotter than fear. How could Kunnel, sweet, laughing Kunnel, be part of this darkness? "You don't understand," she choked out, backing up until her feet hit the swamp water. "This isn't just about money, Kunnel. They'll kill me." Kunnel's grin faltered for a split second, guilt flickering in his eyes. But then he shrugged. "You think I get choice? You think Lagos Day pity anybody? I get family too." He cocked the gun meaningfully. "Last chance, Amaka. Give me the dog." Tears blurred her vision. Somewhere deep inside, Max growled low and threatening, his body coiling as if ready to defend her, no matter the cost. In one desperate move, Amaka grabbed a handful of swamp mud and flung it into Kunnel's face. He cursed, stumbling back as Max lunged at his leg, teeth flashing. Without waiting, Amaka tore into the swamp, crashing through the reeds with Max beside her. Bullets whizzed past, thudding into trees. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but she didn't stop. Betrayal cut deeper than the thorns tearing her skin. Behind her, Kunnel's furious shouts grew fainter as the swamp swallowed her up. When she finally collapsed behind a cluster of thick mangroves, she realized something chilling. Kunnel hadn't been working alone. If he knew about the photograph about Max, it meant someone even closer to her must have betrayed her first. Someone she never suspected. And now they were closing in. Amaka didn't sleep that night. She found a temporary hideout, a tiny abandoned kiosk in K2, its wooden planks rotting and paint peeling. But even exhaustion couldn't steal her vigilance. Max dozed fitfully beside her, every noise outside making him twitch. As the city slowly surrendered to night, Amaka pieced together the nightmare unfolding around her. The photo, Max, Kunnel's betrayal, and the old woman's warning at the market. Someone had planted her into this chaos long ago. Someone close enough to know her daily movements, her family history, her fears. Her mind kept circling back to one possibility she didn't want to believe: Mama Nkechi, her grandmother. At dawn, with trembling hands, Amaka made her way to Mama Nkechi's house. She slipped inside silently, the house smelling of camphor and kerosene. The old woman wasn't home yet. Memories rushed her, laughter in the kitchen, bedtime stories under the stars. Could it all have been a lie? Driven by a sick feeling, Amaka crept into Mama Nkechi's bedroom. Under the ancient iron bed, she found an old tin box. Inside it, folded carefully among worn wrappers, was a letter yellowed with time. It was addressed not to Mom and Ketchy, but to someone else. To the caretaker of the Okoro bloodline. Amaka's hands shook as she unfolded the brittle paper. The letter spoke of a deal. An agreement to hide the last living heir of Chief Okoro's fortune, to keep her hidden until the appointed time. Tears blurred Amaka's vision as she realized the ugly truth. She wasn't just an orphan girl scraping survival on Lagos streets. She was the hidden daughter of a dynasty built on blood, betrayal, and lies. Max had been placed near her all these years, not by accident, but by design, a guardian waiting for the right moment. Before she could process it all, the front door creaked open. Mama and Ketchy's frail voice floated into the room. "I prayed you would never find out." Amaka froze, letter clutched in her hands. Behind her, the woman who had raised her stood. No longer a grandmother in Amaka's eyes, but a stranger woven deep into the conspiracy. Amaka stood frozen, the brittle letter shaking in her hand. Mom and Ketchy stepped into the room, the early morning light casting long shadows across her wrinkled face. She no longer looked like the soft, smiling woman who had raised Amaka. She looked ancient, burdened, dangerous. "You were never supposed to find that letter," Mom and Ketchy said quietly, sadness thick in her voice. Amaka backed away, her heart splintering. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you lie to me? Why raise me like some charity case when all this time I was their blood?" Mom and Ketchy's hands trembled as she reached for her, but Amaka flinched away. With a broken sigh, Mom and Ketchy sank onto the bed. "Because they would have killed you if they knew," she rasped. "Your father, your real father, was murdered for power. Your mother disappeared. Chief Okoro's enemies wanted every last heir wiped out. I took you in under blood oath, to keep you hidden, to save your life." Max let out a low whine, sensing the storm brewing. Amaka's mind reeled. If Mom and Ketchy had protected her, why were killers after her now? Before she could ask, Mom and Ketchy's eyes hardened. "They know you're alive now, and if you stay here, you will die." Amaka opened her mouth to respond when a deafening crash shook the tiny house. The front door exploded inward. Armed men flooded the living room. Not street thugs this time, but well-dressed enforcers with radios crackling orders. Max sprang to his feet, growling furiously. Mom and Ketchy shoved Amaka toward the back window. "Go!" she screamed. "Find Officer Femi. He's the only one who can protect you now." Amaka hesitated for half a heartbeat, just enough time to see Mom and Ketchy snatch up a hidden shotgun from under the bed. With a battle cry that ripped Amaka's soul in two, Mom and Ketchy charged the front door as Amaka and Max slipped out the back into the burning Lagos sun. As gunshots ripped the morning apart behind her, Amaka knew with sick certainty. She had lost the only real family she had ever known. Amaka ran like a woman possessed, weaving through the crowded streets of Ajij Market with Max limping loyally beside her. Every car horn, every shout made her flinch. Somewhere back in that crumbling house, her world had shattered under the sound of gunfire. She forced herself to focus, find Officer Femi, trust no one else. But where could she start? Lagos was a massive beast of chaos, and she was just a flea trying to survive on its back. All she had was a name Mom and Ketchy had whispered countless times before. Femi no day forget det. If you ever need help, find him. Dodging Okadas and angry hawkers, Amaka reached the dusty backstreets of Dopemu where she remembered an old police outpost stood. She found it. A shack with cracked walls and a broken sign swinging in the humid breeze. Inside, a bored sergeant eyed her suspiciously. "Officer Femi?" Amaka panted. "I need to see him. It's urgent." The sergeant snorted. "Femi no day here. Dem transfer am to Ajigunal station months ago. Big man now." He leaned forward, voice dropping. "But USEF day find Wala o. Chief Okoro people day everywhere. You better disappear, girl." Amaka's blood ran cold. Even random officers whispered Chief Okoro's name with fear. With no time to waste, Amaka scraped together her last few naira for a battered kiki ride to Ajigunal, every bump in the road jolting Max's sore body and rattling her nerves. Rain clouds gathered thickly overhead, casting Lagos into an eerie twilight by the time she reached the sprawling police station. Max whimpered low, not from pain this time, but from warning. Something was wrong. As Amaka stepped through the gates, a black Prado Jeep pulled up sharply beside her. The window rolled down. Inside sat a man in a crisp police uniform, Officer Femi. He smiled warmly, too warmly. "Amaka Okoro," he said, calling her true name for the first time. "We've been expecting you." Amaka stiffened, her instincts flaring with alarm. Max pressed against her leg, growling so low only she could hear it. Officer Femi's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Come," he said, patting the passenger seat of the black Prado like he was inviting a child into a candy store. "You must be tired. We've been worried about you." Amaka forced a smile, her mind racing. "We? Who exactly was we?" Mama Nkechi had trusted him once, but people changed. She tightened her grip on Max and pretended to hesitate, trying to buy herself time. If she refused outright, it would raise suspicion. If she accepted, she could be walking into a trap. Her heart pounded as she climbed into the Prado, Max reluctantly hopping in beside her. The car smelled faintly of leather, sweat, and something metallic, blood, perhaps? Officer Femi pulled into the chaotic Lagos traffic with casual ease, whistling tunelessly. Amaka pressed herself against the door, ready to leap if needed. "I heard about Mama Nkechi," he said casually. "A tragedy, but unavoidable." His words, so cold, made Amaka's stomach churn. She glanced at Max. His ears were flat against his head. Danger was everywhere. They drove in silence for a long time, deeper into a part of Lagos Amaka didn't recognize. Dusty roads, empty buildings, fewer people. Her unease grew with every kilometer. She had to act fast. Pretending to scratch her leg, she palmed a small rusted nail she found wedged in the car door pocket. If she had to fight, it would be ugly, but she wouldn't die without trying. As Officer Femi pulled the Prado into a deserted warehouse compound, Amaka's heart plunged. Waiting for them was another black SUV, and stepping out of it was none other than Chief Okoro himself. His cold, predatory eyes locking onto Amaka's terrified face. Chief Okoro's presence sucked the very air from the compound. His tailored agbada fluttered in the dusty breeze, but there was nothing soft about him. His eyes were hard, cold, and calculating. Amaka clutched Max tighter as Officer Femi yanked her roughly out of the Prado, shoving her toward the towering man. Chief Okoro smiled thinly, a smile that never touched his eyes. "So this is the girl they hid from me?" he said, voice like velvet wrapped around broken glass. "You've caused quite a bit of trouble, my dear." Amaka gritted her teeth, forcing herself to meet his gaze. She wouldn't show fear, not now. Chief Okoro circled her slowly like a lion inspecting wounded prey. "You have two choices, Amaka," he said smoothly. "Sign over your inheritance, your claim to the Okoro fortune, and you live a quiet, comfortable life far away from Lagos." He paused, letting the offer settle like poison in her mind. "Or refuse, and die here today. No one will find your body. No one will mourn you." Max growled low and fierce at her side, but Amaka knew one wrong move would end them both. She had dreamed of escaping poverty her whole life, but at this price, her heart slammed against her chest. Either choice was a death sentence. Chief Okoro produced a sleek folder and a pen, holding them out like a noose. Officer Femi watched with detached amusement, arms folded. "Decide," Okoro said, his voice flat. Amaka's mind raced. If she signed, she would become invisible, erased from history. If she refused, they would kill her, maybe Max too. Her palms sweated. She glanced at Max, who stared up at her with fierce, unwavering loyalty. Suddenly, a memory flashed. Baba Iridi's voice. "Your blood carries more than money. It carries power." Amaka realized with brutal clarity. If she gave up now, she wasn't just losing an inheritance. She was handing over a legacy that could free or destroy countless lives. With a trembling breath, she took the pen, but not to sign. Instead, in one furious motion, she stabbed the pen into Chief Okoro's hand, sending papers and blood flying. Chaos exploded around her. Chief Okoro roared in pain, clutching his bleeding hand as the folder and papers scattered into the dust. The guards lunged forward, weapons drawn, but Max was faster. He snapped at the nearest man's ankle, sending him sprawling. Amaka didn't wait. She bolted for the narrow gap between the parked SUVs, adrenaline burning through her fear. Gunshots cracked the air, shards of gravel biting into her bare legs as she sprinted for the broken fence at the compound's edge. Max stayed glued to her side, fearless and fierce. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Someone had called the police, or maybe reinforcements. Either way, Amaka knew they had minutes, maybe seconds, before they were cornered. She stumbled through the gap in the fence and into the wild outskirts of Ajigunal. Endless alleys, open sewers, and concrete ruins. Lagos stretched before her like a giant, pulsing maze. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead where a bullet had grazed her, but she barely felt it. All she knew was run, survive. Max barked sharply, guiding her left toward the deeper slums, where even Chief Okoro's reach would thin. Behind her, furious shouts and the pounding of boots grew louder. They were coming. Ducking into a collapsed building, Amaka dragged a piece of corrugated iron across the gap, creating a makeshift barricade. Her chest heaved. Her whole body shook with exhaustion and terror. Max whimpered softly, licking her scraped arms as if urging her not to give up. For the first time since this nightmare began, Amaka let silent tears fall. Not because she was afraid, but because she was furious. Furious that her life had been stolen before she even understood it. Furious that truth and survival now demanded she fight like an animal. As she wiped her face and squared her shoulders, she caught a glimpse of something hidden beneath the rubble. A tattered school uniform and a child's skeletal hand. Her stomach twisted violently. Chief Okoro's crimes weren't just about money. They were about much, much worse. Amaka stumbled backward, bile rising in her throat. Tiny skeletal remains lay under the rubble. Not one child, but many. Forgotten. Discarded. Max whined, nosing the ruins gently. She knelt, trembling, piecing together the horror. These were the children stolen for power games, insurance against enemies. Not just heirs, sacrificial pawns in Chief Okoro's silent wars. Rage boiled in her blood. She had almost become one of them. All her life, she had lived in borrowed time, breathing borrowed air. She pressed a shaking hand to Max's head. "No more," she whispered. "No more hiding." She dug until her fingers bled, pulling out a small locket with a faded picture inside. A boy who looked hauntingly like her. Her brother? Another lost soul? Tears blurred her sight, but her purpose sharpened like a blade. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every voice that had been silenced. Rising on unsteady legs, Amaka turned toward the city skyline in the distance. She would bring it all down, even if it killed her. Amaka needed proof, hard evidence that couldn't be erased. That night, she sneaked into a dingy internet cafe in Oshodi, risking everything. With trembling hands, she uploaded photos of the bones, the locket, the newspaper clippings. Max sat watchfully by the door. She titled the files, "The Hidden Graves of Lagos." With one final breath, she hit send, targeting major news outlets, local activists, even anonymous tip lines. Within minutes, her battered phone vibrated furiously. The footage exploded across social media like wildfire. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Okoro Secrets, hashtag Lagos Graves, hashtag Justice for the Lost. Reporters scrambled. Bloggers speculated. Chief Okoro's iron image cracked in real time. But the exposure came at a terrible cost. Sirens screamed outside the cafe. Black SUVs screeched to a halt. They had traced her signal. She grabbed Max and bolted into the night as gunfire shattered the windows behind her. Lagos buzzed like an angry hornet's nest. Protests erupted in Surulere, in Ikeja, even in distant Badagry. People screamed for answers, waving printed photos of the missing. The city that once ignored the whispers now roared with fury. Chief Okoro's men tried to quash the flames with threats and bribes, but it was too late. Truth had escaped the shadows. Meanwhile, Amaka and Max dodged through abandoned warehouses and burnt-out markets. Every alley held danger. Every familiar face could be a trap. Max grew weaker by the hour, his limp worsening. Desperation clawed at Amaka. She needed help, but who in this broken city could she trust now? As if answering her prayer, a familiar figure emerged from the misty streets. Tund, the young journalist who had once risked everything exposing corruption. Breathless, he said, "Come with me if you want to survive." Inside Tund's crumbling apartment in Aja, Amaka collapsed onto a threadbare couch, while Max curled into a tight ball at her feet. Tund locked the doors, pulled the curtains tight. "You're the most wanted girl in Lagos," he said, voice low. "Okoro's offering a reward bigger than a politician's salary." Amaka managed a hollow laugh. "Good to know I'm finally worth something." Tund leaned in. "There's a bigger story. Chief Okoro isn't just powerful. He's protected by politicians, police, judges. If we don't bury him completely, he'll survive this storm." Amaka's heart twisted. Was there no end to the rot? But she saw the same fire in Tund's eyes that burned in hers. Together, they would strike the killing blow. And it had to happen soon, before Lagos forgot, before fear swallowed the uprising whole. They plotted all night. The plan was simple but dangerous. Crash Chief Okoro's upcoming gala, the one celebrating philanthropy, and publicly confront him with undeniable evidence. Tund pulled strings. An insider smuggled them fake invitations. Max, still limping, would stay hidden with a trusted activist. It was a risk Amaka hated, leaving Max even for a moment, but she knew she needed to walk into this fire alone. The night of the gala, the city glittered. Important men in agbatas and imported perfumes lined the grand hall. Amaka, dressed in borrowed lace, slipped through the crowd unnoticed. Chief Okoro stood under golden lights, smiling, shaking hands, pretending innocence. Her palms sweated around the flash drive containing every secret. When Okoro raised a toast to truth and transparency, Amaka stepped onto the stage, and all hell broke loose. Cameras swung toward her. Phones rose into the air. Reporters murmured. Amaka's voice shook as she held the microphone, but she forced herself to speak. "My name is Amaka Okoro," she declared. A gasp rippled through the hall. "I am the heir you tried to erase." Chief Okoro's glass shattered in his hand. Before security could grab her, Amaka thrust the flash drive toward the giant projector. Tund, hidden among the tech crew, hit play. Images of the hidden graves, the secret deals, the bloodied letters flooded the screens. Gasps turned to screams. By the time Chief Okoro's men reacted, it was too late. Sirens wailed outside. The compound was surrounded. Chief Okoro didn't go quietly. As police stormed in, he grabbed a security guard's pistol and fired wildly. People screamed and ducked. Amaka dropped to the floor as bullets splintered the stage. Max, hidden outside, barked furiously, sensing the chaos. Through the confusion, Officer Femi, traitorous Femi, tried to hustle Okoro out through a side door. But this time, fate had other plans. A rookie police officer, trembling but brave, blocked their path and fired a clean shot. Okoro crumpled, clutching his chest. Officer Femi surrendered, face ashen. The empire had fallen, but the cost was just beginning to show. The rain fell soft and steady as Amaka stood outside the crumbling courthouse days later. The city buzzed with half-healed wounds, new leaders rising, old ones clinging to dying powers. Max leaned against her, thin but alive, a small miracle in himself. Tund approached with tired eyes and a cautious smile. "You did it," he said. Amaka shook her head. "We only opened the wound. The real healing, that's up to Lagos now." She crouched to hug Max, tears sliding down her face, mixing with the rain. They had survived, but survival had a cost, and innocence was a luxury she could no longer afford. Journalists begged for interviews. Activists wanted her to lead marches. Politicians offered quiet threats wrapped in fake promises. But Amaka refused all of them. She chose her own path, opening a tiny center for orphan children in Ajiganal, naming it Max's house, a place where no child would ever be forgotten again. One evening, sitting under the smoky Lagos sunset, she held Max close and whispered, "We can't save the world, Max, but we can save one child at a time." The streets buzzed with danger still, but for the first time, Amaka felt at peace. She had survived, she had fought, and she had chosen who she wanted to be. Under the deepening Lagos sky, Amaka watched the first children run into Max's house, laughing, free. She smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. Max barked happily, chasing them, limping but proud. He was no ordinary dog. He was the soul of every child who had fought to live. He was her reminder that even broken things could be beautiful. As the last light faded, Amaka whispered into the wind, "Thank you for guarding me, Max. Now, it's my turn to guard others." And as night embraced the city, the guardian dog, scarred but unbroken, stood watch over the girl he had saved, and the future she was building from ashes. In a city where secrets are buried and survival is a battle, one girl, one broken dog, reminded the world that loyalty, love, and courage can still win. If you believe in second chances and unseen heroes, subscribe for more stories that keep the soul of Africa alive.